So now we have 10 minutes for questions. So please, Professor Luis and Nadia and Marielle, can you come here? Marielle, can you
You can stay there because you can. Only if you feel. Onde is that? Audrey will be there.
questions?
Lembrando que vocês podem fazer em português e a Mairi traduz. Faz aí.
Faça aí. Essa professora. Desfaz aí.
I have one question. Briseida, monkey mothers think in maturation?
No. If they are thinking in maturation.
I mean, you show how they prepare the environment. But I wonder about the social learning. And you didn't show it, if I remember, but I know that mothers used to show their infants how to do it. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, for capturing monkeys, that's not true. First of all, I'd like to say thank you for your guidance, because we are using affordances concept in our papers, and we actually saw what you just said that you would do. So we are choosing stones and nuts, and that's it. Then I had to tell you that in 10 minutes I had to leave because I had classes, so I'm very, very sorry. And then about the mother-infant relation, we have in monkey different kinds of species and different kinds of social structures. And when we talk about chimpanzees, we see that there is a closer relation. Well, I mean, when chimpanzees are cracking nuts, the mothers are really near the infants and the juveniles. And when capturing monkeys, it's not so. It's not that it's not so. It's not when the youngers go for cracking, the olders are still there, but not necessarily cracking, and they are most of the time with other young monkeys, but not as young as this monkey. I'm very confused, but what I mean is that we have groups of juveniles and infants with different ages, and while the adults are resting or grooming, the youngers are doing cracking and exploring the nut-cracking sites that the olders left. And some of these youngers, they already know how to crack. So we have some, not really, when we mark the frequencies of who are they observing, who are they together in the nut-cracking sites. Sometimes they are with their mothers, but most of the times they are with other guys. They are hanging out with the guys, you know? That's it. But we have some studies now. We are doing these studies in which we are transcribing and analyzing some videos where we see very tiny little newborn babies since they were born and up to weaning. So we are following these monkeys. They are very young to correctness because of their body. They don't have enough strength and coordination, but they are together with their mothers. But we are not analyzing the mother development as a whole, not only nut cracking. So we do not have this. We have some data, but not a very. We are still working on that.
What I was thinking is that all the talks, you have some kind of indication what you can do, what you cannot do.
Yeah.
Others show the nativist approach, which is saying that, look, you can do that, you'll be able to do that later on. And the empiricist, you can do everything. And I was wondering whether or not in this population, these primates, are they nativist or empiricist?
So they use the developmental system approach. Right? Neither one, not the other. That's it.
Okay.
And I would also like to add, because I was also thinking about our Western ways of thinking, so we had to follow what is on the internet, what is on the manual, or what is on the book, and that's why I made that question, because we do not connect with the baby. Let's co-regulate with the baby. Each baby is different from the other, so what works for one baby in Norwegian doesn't work for a baby in Ecuador, I don't know. So, but capuchin monkeys, yes, they are there with their babies doing what capuchins do.
Okay.
I have just an object question about your research, because my family is from Zimbabwe. So yes, and then I was very interested to know how did you find out that those monkeys were living there, because we have like a big problem of desertification there. Yes, and because of the exploring of the souls, because of the mines, and I wanted to know how did you know that those monkeys were there and
Yeah. So in around 2000, there was this family from Jubués in Fazenda Boa Vista. They used to work with tourism, ecological tourism. And once BBC went there for tourism and for filming and so there was they have shown that the monkeys, they spontaneously cracked nuts. And then we were already studying capuchin monkeys and nut cracking in Tietê Ecological Park in São Paulo. And some our co-workers, they were studying capuchin monkeys in captivity in Italy and in Georgia in the United States. And they really wanted to study free capuchin monkeys. They were already thinking about affordances and environment and study something where it happened. So they, at that time, I wasn't in the project yet, they contacted people from Brazil. Well, contacted, I mean our collaborators from abroad. Contacted Professor Patricia Zar and Professor Eduardo Toni and said, oh, we want to study these monkeys that we saw in BBC. And we needed Brazilian people to help us to go there. So that's where we started, and now this farm is supported by the project. And that's the place supported by the project, especially by Professor Patricia Zar. I have to say that she's, some people say she is the Brazilian Jane Goodall. And I think that's true.
That's nice.
Yeah, so we can see that around the farm, everything is being devastated.
yeah.
And the farm is there because of the project.
Okay, it's very nice.
But it's very hard to sustain that.
Yeah.
Thank you for your question.
Thank you.
Pode fazer em português, que eu acho que é uma questão.
Claro.
Eu não sei se é uma questão de Brasil ou se é da região que eu moro, mas sobre o assunto de que não tem que ter um diagnóstico para começar a intervenção precoce. Eu vejo muito que ainda tem essa questão dos médicos não encaminharem para a fisioterapia ou para a terapia ocupacional, porque falam que tem que esperar, ser um diagnóstico fechado. Como é que faz essa criança chegar até o tratamento sem depender desse encaminhamento?
A pergunta é para mim?
Para quem quiser responder.
Eu vou começar então.
So let me translate first for Audrey. So she is asking about the concept of you don't need a diagnosis to start the early intervention.
Então, na maioria dos países, eles fazem o diagnóstico precoce, fazem o diagnóstico para que as crianças sejam encaminhadas na intervenção. Tanto que ultimamente, se você vê os trabalhos da Novak e de outros pesquisadores, é buscar fazer a intervenção precoce, que eles estão usando a ressonância magnética junto com a Heine, os movimentos gerais, para tentar fazer o diagnóstico o mais precoce possível para essas crianças serem encaminhadas. E eles defendem a idade de 6 meses. Quer falar?
She's telling that usually they use some tools for the diagnosis and they recommend the 6-month-old as an age, as an adult age.
E assim,
6.
É um diagnóstico fechado, tipo EPC. Não precisa ter uma suspeita de que é PC. Então eles esperam ter a confirmação do PC, praticamente quase no mundo todo. Ter a confirmação de PC para fazer o encaminhamento para físio. Mas no meu caso, com uns 40 anos que eu trabalho, eu não defendo isso. Bastou o bebê ser de risco. E que, como que você sabe, você tem toda a história dessa gestação, desse nascimento. Então eu acho que a gente já tem que começar a fazer o follow-up. A gente faz um acompanhamento e fazer a intervenção o mais rápido possível. Que o que eu defendo aí esses anos todos é que seja no máximo até o 4º mês de vida. E não esperar também que um bebê chegue a fazer 6 meses de idade cronológica ou 4 meses de idade cronológica para começar a fazer a intervenção se ele for prematuro. Não concordo com isso. Eu acho que mesmo o bebê prematuro, porque se você esperar, por exemplo, ele ter 4 meses de idade cronológica, ele já ficou 4 meses no meio ambiente. E ele está tendo toda a aprendizagem desse ambiente. Então eu não acho que tem que esperar ele fazer 4 meses ou 6 meses de idade cronológica para que ele comece a intervenção. Esse é o meu ponto de vista. Não é um ponto de vista geral no Brasil e nem nos estudos dos pesquisadores que a gente tem visto.
Okay, so
Se quer,
she's against this recommendation of wait until 6 months old, because it took time to get the diagnosis. It took around 6 months old, and she recommends before 4 months old. Otherwise, you will lose a very good time to.
But the criteria is the premature.
Yes.
If the baby is evaluated as risk.
I think she said it's a lot of risk factors. Ele perguntou se o fator que você olha é a prematuridade ou se tem outros.
Não, outros fatores, né? Porque tem fatores de risco em geral. Nível baixo socioeconômico, mães que são drogadas, mães que têm alcoólicas, e só ter um nível baixo socioeconômico já é um grande risco, né, para um atraso nesses bebês. E às vezes não é nem um atraso nesses primeiros meses, mas você começa a perceber após o primeiro ano, segundo ano de vida, esses atrasos dos bebês.
And she said that if you see that there are many risk factors involved, even that you don't see any delay in motor behavior or any other behavior, you should start because of the risk factors involved in the process.
Well,
I'm going to try to complement her answer. There is new guidelines for that. Several hospitals in United States, at least the ones that I know, like the Los Angeles Hospital for Children, they have an index of risk. When you have several risk factors that when you put this in a formulation, you have a specific index of risk, and these children, despite the fact that she has or he has or she has or not signs, they are included in the intervention. But this has been something new from the last maybe 5-8 years, and we don't have this now in Brazil. I don't know any place that have this index of risk. It's more like what Luisa is doing. You know that several risk factors affect child development. You try to prevent and have this intervention as early as possible. But I think the problem in Brazil is why I stress a little bit about soft science. I think the problem in Brazil is the lack of consideration for the soft science. There is soft science that you can see also on the child since they are not newborn. In this soft science, the HINE is an example in the general movements, is the second example. For me, the two best, I would use TIMP also. TIMP is also capable of detecting the soft science. You can detect in the first month of life. So I think the intervention, I think we needed to advance the research in Brazil to have an index of risk, combine several risk factors, and that's what I'm doing, trying to do. I don't know when I'm going to get there. We have estimated last year. Our formulation was not really good enough. I think I need a few years more of detecting risk in different populations to have really an index that could help us, in the follow-up clinics in the hospital, say, this child, she has this index, so she needs immediately care. So I think we needed to advance this. I think some countries are doing this. They are not just waiting for the evaluations, motor evaluations or the soft science. They are combining soft science with assessment, other assessments. They are combined with brain images. They are combined with several risk factors to have this index. So we're going to be there, I think, soon in terms of words. I think it's, and I don't agree with wait until 4 months. I show you the data. That was not the only one study. We have other studies that we start after the first hours, wait 40 hours, sometimes a little bit more, and start intervention. And even if you have a randomized control trial, we can have a very strong, sound methodological research and can show that these children are benefiting in some extension from this intervention. One last thing I think we needed to think about that is, for my experience, language and motor, our interventions are very effective for language and motor. It's not so effective for cognitive because we are catching up these kids too late. So if you see the risk factors, cognitive development has been affected for the clinical outcomes. It's more strongly affected for clinical outcomes. When you look at the motor and language, you see more diversity in the risk factors. You see the environment play a good role on that. You don't see the environment play a good role on some cognitive delay. So if it is hard to change, you need to start early to prevent later academic or school failure. So.
Big Erica.
Could you speak about early intervention in physical education with a physical education teacher in Brazil, in Noruega, I don't know, Noruega. It's very difficult for me. Noruega. Please, could you speak about the physical education in early intervention with children with risk about their development. I don't know if I'm clear about that.
I don't know if you're asking me, you're asking everybody?
No, everybody.
Okay, are you asking about if physical educators can do early intervention?
Yes.
Of course, I'm a physical educator.
No.
We can do early intervention, we are training for that.
Because we speak about age for early intervention children. In Brazil, na Noruega, how can a physical educator intervention in early intervention with kids at risk of development?
When they can start?
Yes.
I think if they have the training, they can start it like a physical therapist or anybody else at the first month of life. I don't see this separation. I think we needed to be trained, needed to have knowledge, we needed to be very well trained for assessment, but I'm not sure if you understand your question, to be honest.
Posso falar em português?
Fala, isso.
Como que é a intervenção precoce na educação física? How? Sorry. The age, what do you do with these kids in physical education?
Okay, I understand. For me, it doesn't matter if I have physical education or physical therapist that is working with me. The intervention protocol is the same. We have kinesthetic stimulation, touch stimulation, tracking, visual tracking. I do a lot of visual tracking. Visual tracking has been related to cognitive development. Very strong research on that, so we do a lot of tracking. We do changing the postures. We have our national data has shown that children in Brazil, there is something about the daily care that we put the kids on one posture and then we put the kids in another posture. We didn't allow them to transitate between one posture to another, so we do a lot of changing posture from supine to prone, from sitting to being in for support position. So we do a lot of this. It has been for me something that it has been, people has shown lack of interest in teaching children to transitate from one posture to another. This is essential for locomotion. So we do a lot of these transition positions. We do posture control, and we use a lot of different kind of, for balance, for heavy baby. I don't know if you see some pictures. We have heavy babies in skates. So we use a lot of changing objects to put the kids off of balance, to help them learn how to gain balance. We have exploration. It's always cognitive model because we have hiding objects in a track, like a track, several different activities that they have to go through with different objects that they needed to discover. We have this very well described in this studies protocol. And doesn't matter if you're a physical educator, doesn't matter if you're a physical therapist. I have a nurse that conducts also intervention. It's depends on your training. I don't know if you...
Yes, it's okay.
I want to ask Audrey a question. You put on the Brains Baby
the EEG.
Yes, how does it work and how we see that tool and how we translate that data to see that results?
Yeah, do you have an hour? The most important thing that you need to understand is that these electrodes, they are very sensitive sensors, 128 sewn together for the babies and 256 for the adults, because we have these nets in all different sizes from newborn to adult size. And then we put, every sensor is embedded in a sponge. So we put the whole net in lukewarm saline solution.
and a dash of baby shampoo actually, because that also helps the conductivity. So the sponges surrounding all the sensors, they soak up the water, and then if you place it on the child's head and you make sure that they're all upright, in the upright position, then they are so sensitive, so nothing is sent into the baby's brain like with X-ray or fMRI, but the sensors just pick up the electrical activity, the EEG, and encephalography, in the same way as we have EMG, like for muscle electric activity, and ECG for heart activity. So they pick it up, and then you get, for every electrode, you get this signal, which is very noisy, usually, especially if the baby moves a lot. So you need a lot of trials per baby, so that at the end of the day, the positive noise that you pick up is cancelled out by the negative noise that you pick up, and then you end up with the signal you're interested in. And then we pick up electrical activity from the surface of the brain, but ideally we want to know where in the brain the activity originated. So we have to use complex mathematical models, inverse mathematics, to calculate back from the surface activity where in the brain the activity originated. And then we get like brain waveforms, source waveforms, and we can look at how the nerve cells, the brain cells are oscillating, and then we can tell which areas of the brain are active and in what way they're active, and if large parts of the brain are active, then the different parts of the different active parts have to communicate with each other, and they do that through brain oscillations that can happen at different frequencies and in different parts of the brain. And yeah, it's complex. So when we started with this new system in 2004 or something like that, we had to relearn, because up until then we had been looking at actual behavior, reaching and grasping movements, looking behavior, balance, keeping a balanced posture, those kind of things at the behavioral level. But this system allowed us to see what was going on inside the brains of babies that are developing. And EEG as a method is not new at all, because for many, many decades people have been looking at epilepsy and doing sleep research with EEG. But on adults you have to, and without the net system that we have, you have to glue one electrode to the scalp, and you have to scrape away a little bit of and babies just don't put up with that. So it only became possible to study babies with EEG after we got this system that allows us to put on the net in one movement, and then we can start collecting data immediately. But I mean, the testing of babies is the easy part. Because after these many years we know what babies like, and we always make them watch moving things, so balls coming towards them, or we simulate forward motion or backward motion, or we have a car that drives around on the screen and disappears behind an occluder. So we motion babies love, obviously. But then, once the baby leaves, then the long process of analyzing these data, which the PhD students and the master students do, begins.
Thank you.
Having said that, in a couple of weeks' time, we will move over from the EEG paradigm to what's called F-NIRS, which means we will get a system again, will take us a few years to get acquainted with. But this time there will be a transmitter of light into the cortex, and at the other end there is a receiver, and it measures the blood flow underneath, and this light can measure how much oxygen there is in that particular blood flow. Meaning that the more oxygen there goes to certain areas, the more active. Now, EEG is like instant in milliseconds, but this FNIRS takes a couple of seconds, obviously, because blood flow needs to adjust with vasodilatation of the all stuff. So it takes. So other tasks become suddenly interesting. Not only like watching things on the screen, but also maybe a mother-infant interaction with both the mother having a cap and the infant, to see over time where the blood is flowing during such a communication. Or reaching movement because reaching was very difficult because of the artifacts. Every time you move a muscle, it's, yeah. But now this FNIRS is much more robust for artifacts. So you can do many more interesting things, such as movement, crawling on the floor, for example. That's all now. We have to start thinking again new what kind of experiments we can do which are allowed with this new system. You can use them EEG and FNIRS together, so you have both the electricity and the blood flow, but you can also use the two separate, of course. So that's it.
There's somebody over there.
The EEGs and the FNIRS, right?
FNIRS,
FNIRS.
yeah.
They are used in kids starting with pretty newborns, or have.
Yeah, there are very small nets. There are very small nets possible. But only because this time you need a transmitter and a receiver. They take more place on the head, and the baby's head is only so big, so you won't get 128 sensors like in the EEG case. So we have to cut back on resolution on the head, but that's thing we have to learn again to work with.
Well, I want to make a comment, because I think Ruth, when I don't know if you understood correctly. I'm not in the job to translate Ruth, but the concept that he used, affordance, I didn't think about that, Ruth, but I think it captured the whole of talks, really.
Yeah.
And it points to one thing. You that came here today, you must think, what I thought about development and what this morning has changed about development. I think that is the important question. Because all they show is touching on this important question. What we believe about development. And all of them, they show in different ways how and why beliefs about development will interfere with what we do. That's why the concept of affordance is very important, because as Ruth said, affordance is not about one individual or one environment, but the relation. And this cannot be separated. The research of Audrey and Ruth shows that. And I remember about from the talk of Audrey, she mentioned the work of Blandini Brill. And Blandini Brill, I once was attending one lecture, and she said one thing. She went to Bambara, as Audrey told you, and she was a psychologist, developmental psychologist, and also an anthropologist. She had both knowledge base. And she talked with mothers. And one thing that she discovered is that the mothers don't have the word development. If you ask if you ask a Bambara mother, what is the development of your baby? How is your baby developing? She will look to you surprised because they don't know the word development. And they will say, the mother will say, we build our children. You have to build from the start. You have to invest, you have to construct, you have to build your baby. That's why they do a lot of things. Massage, exercise, from the beginning. For them, there is no question when to start, when to intervene. You have to do it all the way. Otherwise, in Portuguese we'd say, não vai vingar. Não vai vingar. It's not going to come. And that's why I think Ruth's idea to summarize all talks is very important, because in this sense, affordance is everything. That's why I think the Briseda's talk is fundamental. You have to look at animals. You have to look at animals, how they do it. And the closest before, better. You have to look at the primates. How they do it. Do they think when to start? So I think it's just a comment, but it's your idea of affordance. I think it's fundamental to wrap up all the.
Tomorrow I would like to continue on that note by showing how our brain, we've shown some data today about the looming and optic flow, but tomorrow I want to highlight how we can think differently, how the brain or the baby's brain is functioning while it is picking up information. We can argue that the baby brain is processing that information, so making something from poor information, or we can think of the baby brain more as a physical system resonating to the information that is available in the environment. And because of our latest research, where we have the looming information, where the baby sees the loom but also hears the loom, how the baby can deal with that information. You may say, well, it's coming from the eyes, so the occipital area, it's coming from the ears, the auditory organ. So something in the brain needs to stick them together because they are information from the same event. And that turns out to be really difficult how that is done by the brain. So I present an alternative view on how the brain is used more than a radio receiver tuning into specific sources of information and not having to combine information but picking up that information already structured from the environment. So the babies and we have a brain, but I propose different ways of how we use it in perceiving information. So
even I think it's very curious, even like when you select something, some object to study as a researcher, I think it comes with you from somewhere. I think it's very curious. When I saw the documentary, for example, I was very excited to hear that the professor, she has some people on her family that were very curious about movements, and like maybe that comes with you when you perceive things on childhood or as a baby, and it comes with you, that curiosity. I did a research that I'm very sure that it came with me from my childhood, my interest about education, and I think it's very interesting, and I wanted to know more about like the field, to connect like the sociology part with the brain, how it works. And it was very interesting to hear your thoughts about this connection, the observer and the interaction with the object.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the knowledge is an object, but we have to always know that it's being observed by an observer.
Well, my background is more from physical education, where I always self-experience when you use too much cognition in some sports actions, it goes horribly wrong. Whereas if you use perceptual information and directly act upon that, it usually goes alright. So that question alone made me going through the whole thing of ecological psychology, etc.
Yeah.
Don't overthink. Never overthink.
Just one observation. The work of Eloisa and Nadia, they talked about theory, but the main thing about what they do is what they show in the end of the presentation, the intervention. Is there that their theory will show up. This is important because I know a little bit about those two, and with the intervention you are building theory as well, and that is very important. And we can see that in your theory. That's why when you answer the question about when to start, should it be 4 months, 6 months, you both said the earlier the better. It's like the Bambara mothers.
Yeah.
That is not a very important question. The important question is to interview, is to act. And your observation about Ruth, you have to be here tomorrow to see how you do that.
I just never hold a baby with one hand. Guys, I do all the things, but not hold if you just one like the Bambara mothers. That is quite challenging.
But unfortunately in Norway and Europe, they have this attitude that they would like to wait and see, to see if the baby will grow out of it. Even though they may pick up signs that the baby is damaged or shows a developmental delay, they like to wait and see. First of all, because they don't want to risk or challenge the mother-infant interaction by telling a mother too early that her baby is likely to develop problems later on. They might disturb the bonding. And secondly, mainly, I think because there is so little that we can help, that we can give to babies as an intervention. There is physiotherapy, but we know that physiotherapy doesn't work for CP. There is, until now, so we should really be working all together in designing good intervention programs for the very young babies, not wait until they're 4 or something like that, but as soon as possible, as there is some indication that there might be a problem, not necessarily that there has to be a problem, but there might be a problem, then you start, and and if there turns out to be no problem whatsoever, then no harm is done. Yeah, so that's fine. And if there turns out to be a problem, then you are secure that you have done everything possible by starting as soon as possible.
If I may comment something on that, there is other thing that I always, it's really a concern for me in Brazil. When I presented the data of our children, that the difference when you compare the cross-cultural studies, and you find where you find the difference in children that they have more risk factors and are in the low percentile of the tests. So, if you think about the public policies on their countries, those children, when they detected a delay at 6 or 4 or 6 months, they will have some kind of support from public policy. We don't. So mothers have to go to the justice to get their rights insured. So for us, I don't think we can sit and wait, because we won't have a good, strong policy, because these differences, this cultural difference, the only explanation that I can find for this the differences only in the lower percentiles is Rich countries have good policy. When they detect the delay, they have programs that will take care of the kids. Poor countries, when they detect the delay, these children have nothing. So if we start early, we also maybe prevent from the lack of our government work. Because I think it's still a long way to have some public policy for children at risk. Not for, we are improving for children that have disabilities, but not children at risk. And so I don't think we can afford to wait.
Really nice. Yes, that's nice.
So given that you're touching this topic, I would ask about this because for normal children, for normal developing children too, we need public policy.
Also, yes.
Because, and to be as early as possible must be with the parents.
And I think the parents are the answer for that. I was talking to Luis yesterday that I have been in a love relationship with the parents. They have too much passion, and you are in love, and sometimes then you just hate each other, and then you fall in love again. It was like that because for near 10 years, our intervention with teachers, our intervention with attendants in the care that have less than 4 years of formal education, they are more able to implement the changes, to conduct the intervention than the parents at home. And I was in this love-hate relationship. I say, we are doing everything here to help. It seems that was not a concern, but I think it was a mistake. It's our mistake. We needed to learn how they also value this activity, their beliefs. In motor, and the importance of motor skills is not is not a strong belief for Brazilian culture. The parents are always afraid about cognitive and social development, never about motor. So we have to rethink our intervention, how we related to parents. I think in the last 5 years we are in love again, and I think I improved myself in understanding why for low-income families was so hard to incorporate a small change in the organization of the furniture. Have a chair close to a table so that the child has support to go to one place to another. Simple things like that they can implement, the foster care implement, and the home care unit. Yeah. So it was really difficult for me. And the point I want to make is that it's also a lack of public policy. We have advertised on TV about everything, never about promote the development of our child.
How to care of them.
Keep your child in a prone position 10 minutes a day, please. So they can hold the hand. Sometimes when you hold the child and start to put in the prone position, the mother freak out because they don't like the prone position. Of course they don't like it. They are never exposed to that. So I think that this is also what the mother experiences. Like you said in the morning, they are so afraid, they have so many bad information on the internet. And this idea that the child will catch up is something that bothers me also because, yes, some will catch up, but the other ones that need help, they will not. And then you have like a snowball that a soft side start to be very strong, and then you have an environment that will like prevent this child to play. Then you have a social language environment that is a cascade. So I think we needed to be more strong in public policy. It's not easy. Like the study in the prison the intention was changing the prison environment. We never got the final part of the money because they didn't like the idea that the kids were doing well. If they had at least provide some things in there, so they needed to deal with their money. So sometimes when your result is against what the government wants, it's hard to go further. So
can I make a comment?
Of course.
So I think that in our experience,
in this relationship with parents is that in our clinical practice, the parents came with the baby to the room when the intervention is going to happen, and we sit with the parents, and then we say, so my goal with this baby today is that I want him to do that, and to achieve that goal, I need to do that, and that. So that's why I'm going to do everything that I'm going to do. And then I think, so I am doing, and I am talking with the parents, and I think that helps a lot to then visualize what am I doing and why I'm doing that. And then we say to them that, when you are home, you repeat that. So you do that, and then do you understand what I did? Yes, I understand. So show me. Because sometimes parents they are afraid to tell us that they don't understand, or they are ashamed that they don't understand one thing that we said. So we say to them, so show me how you're going to do at home. And then they show us in our room, and we say, oh, that's okay, that's great. No, you can do better here, you can do better here. And they repeat at home, and they feel, and they send to us, so I'm doing right. What do you think? Look, he do what you wanted him to do. He didn't do during the physical therapy, but he did it at home. So I think that helps a lot with the relationship with the parents, and to create this, I don't know, to create this bond with the family.
But it is effective to be consistent. Toda essa atividade que a gente faz com as mães, para elas filmarem em casa e mandar pra gente, a gente fazia isso antes da pandemia, não foi por causa da pandemia.
Então, posso fazer uma
But just one comment. It is important to see the dose of this intervention. And that's my point when I said that about this. Of course, we explain everything for the parents. Of course, in our intervention, they manipulate the child in front of us. They learn how to do. My point was a little bit different. My point is that the dose of intervention needed to be very well monitored. And this is the reason that we use the smartphones with programs that they inform. Because when the parents have to complete the checklist or doing other things, we don't know if the dose that is supposed to, the dose of the intervention, if the intervention is working because the dose is not appropriate, because they are not in fact implementing what's necessary. We know that 2 times a week, 1 time a week, won't change behavior. We needed to have parents do at home in a very persistent way. And this is the point where I think the technology will help us to have a better monitor of this. It maybe shows that some intervention will have some impact because we have problems with that. Sorry, I have to make that point.
Uma questão de ordem. We are very advanced on time. And we will have the question of Renata, and then we finish. Okay?
No, I was thinking about a lot of talks, and this is why it's so important that we work together, because psychology, actually I am a biologist, but I made my master PhD in psychologist, and I was studying in my PhD practices of care and socialization goals. So this is fundamental because sometimes one intervention that you are proposing for the mother is not ecologically relevant. So this is not, it doesn't make sense for the mother, you know. So this is so important to consider all the things, the work of Nadia with the psychometric analysis and adaptation, because there are a lot of realities, like you said, when the researcher goes to, I don't know how to pronounce that place, but the mothers didn't know what it is, development. Yeah. So the words that our Western Caucasian minds are always thinking, sometimes when you are in an environment, you have to took off your glasses and look much more proximal to see in what in what that culture can provide you. So in that sense, dynamic systems is very important. Perception, action, and affordance is like Ruda said today. And I would like to congrats for the talks, and after I have to talk, but after I can talk about intervention and training during the pandemic, because I was trying and I didn't success because it was very hard. Heloísa, depois eu preciso falar com você.
Well, I think it's a good time to stop. Today we have one session still for the students and other researchers who want to show their work. I think it's going to be here.
Aquarium.
No aquarium. All the posters will be set on this outside here, this auditorium. We will come back here at 4 o'clock, 4 p.m., and most of them will be here as well. And so you'll be able to talk with them, showing our work. And I think that's all. I'm not going to read a poem, but there is a poem which has much to do what you have already said. It's by Gabriela Mistral, and it talks about children. I'm not going to read the poem, but the last two verses. She says, to the children, we cannot answer tomorrow. Their name is today.
Yeah.
So let's
perfect.
have a good lunch.
Yeah.